Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. Kevin Rogers and Thom Cunningham with you as we take you through the next 45 minutes, hour or so. We got plenty to talk about. NFL Draft is tonight, and also the NBA Major League Baseball will hit on as well. But a lot of stuff to talk about with the NFL Draft. And first, before we get to the draft, I want to remind you about the Daily Insider contest. We have daily, and we give out a week's worth of handicapper selections, and basically for one handicapper only, not all of them. And basically what you do is you leave a comment underneath the video, not in the live chat, but in the comments section. You leave your user ID from Vegas Insider and your best bet for tonight. Now, you can put a best bet for baseball, for hockey, for the NBA, NFL draft too, but listen, you can't put Trevor Lawrence minus 10,000 to go to Jacksonville. That's not going to win, even if it's still on the board. That one, that's a no-go. That one you cannot do. It's got to be a reasonable pick, okay? So you put that there. You're in the drawing to win a week's worth of handicapper selections. Now, here's the thing. If you are not, if you do not have a user ID at Vegas Insider, that's fine, because what you do is you go to the big yellow box that says register on the homepage, and you can actually, it's on every page, and you can go to free membership, register now, go to that, create the password, the ID, your user account. It's all free, so you don't have to worry about paying for any of this. So it's all free. Do that, and then you'll have user ID.
That's simple.
And the reason we ask you for that is so we can get in contact with you. We're not asking you to get all this personal information. We just want to get in contact with you.
We have to know how to reach you if you win.
If you just say your name is John Smith, that's not helpful. So we need that information, and then you can be in the drawing. Put your best bet for the night, and our marketing department will get in touch with you, assuming you're the winner. So that's the key too. That you pick a winner. If you pick a loser, then you're a no-go. Okay. So with all that being said, let's get to the NFL Draft, which is tonight. It's in Cleveland, and we're assuming, unless something goes haywire, we're assuming the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to pick Trevor Lawrence with the number one pick of the draft coming up tonight out of Clemson. He was the guy all along, and, you know, at least for me personally, seeing how Jacksonville has struggled over the years, it's good to see they have they're going to have a great franchise quarterback. It's just too bad they're playing for Urban Meyer. So you want Trevor Lawrence to win, but you want Urban Meyer not to have success. So that kind of that's the way it goes. But so Trevor Lawrence goes number one to Jacksonville. We're assuming he's a heavy favorite, and then Zach Wilson of BYU would be going to the Jets at 2. Sam Darnold's gone, so now Zach Wilson's going to be the quarterback of the future. We'll see if he's the next Mark Sanchez or if he's the next Sam Darnold. Who knows? So now let's go to 3, Tom. Now that we've gotten the first 2 out of the way. All right, so the San Francisco 49ers on the clock.
Yep.
They probably won't play this season because Kyle Shanahan said that you may not live to Sunday. So
he's not wrong.
Yeah, so you never know. I mean, he could be telling us something that maybe we don't know. Okay, you have all these quarterbacks that are available for number 3. Mac Jones from Alabama, Trey Lance from North Dakota State, Justin Fields from Ohio State. You also have Kyle Pitts, the big tight end out of Florida.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson, as you see on the screen, he's probably not going number 3 to San Francisco because he'll be off the board. But what are your thoughts here, even though it seems like Mac Jones is probably the guy to go number 3 and Jimmy Garoppolo could be on his way out, who knows, or Jimmy can just be the guy running the show this year and then one of these guys is up next. But Mac Jones, right now, he's the favorite to be number 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't take that bet, though, just because it's way too expensive. I would, if you're going to take the number 3 overall pick, I would probably take Trey Lance just because of the value he's getting, or even Justin Fields for that matter. I just have a hard time paying that price for the 3rd overall pick being Mac Jones. It's not a lock. And in terms of Jimmy G, I think San Francisco's getting a quarterback. That's without a doubt. But Jimmy G might get traded tonight. And that, I think the 3rd and the 4th pick is going to be very telling with Atlanta having the 4th pick, how the rest of the draft will go. But I think we're all expecting San Francisco to get a quarterback with that 3rd pick. Personally, I would, if I'm betting that market, I would take Lance or Fields just because I'm not paying minus 300 for Mac Jones being the 3rd overall pick. They're going to get a quarterback, though, and so that we do know. Atlanta could go either way. They're going to go Pitts probably, but they could get a quarterback. There's a good hedging opportunity with the Falcons. You could take Kyle Pitts to be their pick at minus 125, hedge that with Atlanta's first pick being a quarterback at plus 200. And if you go with a full unit on that, you will break even if the Falcons take Pitts, or you will profit if they take a quarterback. So that's kind of what I'm looking at with the first 4 picks right now.
Okay, so you move to Atlanta now. Let's assume that Mac Jones goes to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So now, obviously the conversation, and you lived in Atlanta for a long time. You went to a lot of Falcons games, so you have a good pulse on them.
Too many.
Right? Not enough playoff wins. That Matt Ryan has been there, Jesus, since 2007 is when he got...
Right around there.
2007, right? Because he was... 08, I believe, because the Dolphins had the first pick in 08. They in 07 is when they finished 1-15. So the Falcons 08 was when Matt Ryan got drafted. So he's been with Atlanta this long, going to 2021. Okay, now I got the math right. Okay, they have the weapons there. They have Julio Jones. They have the weapons offensively. They have Calvin Ridley. There are players there. What do the Falcons do? Do they go the Kyle Pitts route as far as now you have that game-changing tight end?
Right.
Or do you say, all right, Matt, we've had enough of this. We're going to bring in another quarterback. If we bring in Trey Lance, if we think he's the guy, we think Justin Fields is the guy. I just think Atlanta's so intriguing. San Francisco's going to get a quarterback. We don't know who, but Atlanta, you don't know if they're going to go quarterback route or go with Kyle Pitts.
Or they could trade down and go defense. The issue I had, so there's a new sheriff in town with Atlanta, and he's an offensive-minded coach. And through the years, Atlanta has really gone through defensive coaches. You go Mike Smith to Dan Quinn. Now you're moving to an offensive-minded coach. So I'm not really sure the direction that they're thinking. The past Atlanta's defensive picks have not always panned out. And when you look at their first-round picks on defense, Keanu O'Neal, Vic Beasley, they're not there anymore. Now Deion Jones could go either way, but he got hurt. So they're not locks when they decide to go defense. When Atlanta says to themselves, we have to improve the defense. Well, it's easier said than done. It's like, you want to improve the defense, but you got to land on these picks. Atlanta they haven't really done a good job of that in recent history. They just haven't done a good job of picking after the second round, really since 2016, 15, right around there. I think that they're just going to say, you know what, let's just go with the best player on the board, and they're going to go with Kyle Pitts. The offensive line is so bad, though, in Atlanta. You mentioned they have all these weapons, but, you can't really use the weapons if Matt Ryan is constantly under pressure, because he doesn't do well under pressure, Matt Ryan. He needs to have an offensive line for him to produce well. So I personally think that they're going to go Kyle Pitts. If they want to trade back for defense, whatever, more power to them, but that traditionally has not worked for them. They'll probably just go best player available and then kind of go from there. Atlanta is not in a rush to be very good right now. They're kind of in a tricky spot where they're testing the waters with what they have. So this is more of a 3-year overhaul with Atlanta than I think it is get a draft pick now and be good in the NFC South. I just don't see that.
So after Atlanta, then it's Cincinnati, and a lot of the talk, and again, this is the whole assumption there's going to be nobody trading out. If somebody trades out, San Francisco trades out, Atlanta trades out, it messes everything up, obviously. So you look at the Bengals and Jamar Chase, the receiver from LSU who sat out this past year, the connection with him and Joe Burrow, that would be huge since the Bengals really don't have any kind of great wide receiver. A.J. Green is gone. And the Sewell, the big offensive lineman from Oregon, who's expected to, again, top offensive lineman out there to protect Joe Burrow. And I just don't like the conversation of, Burrow got hurt because he had a good offensive line. He tore his every time you tear an ACL because your offensive line isn't good. That's where I just don't. I know Cincinnati has a lot of holes to fill, but getting a guy like Jamar Chase, and that's nothing against Sewell, but to get a guy like Jamar Chase and Pitts is there, it's assuming Pitts hasn't been taken yet. But Chase is a huge body. He's a game changer. That's what the Bengals need. Joe Burrow needs somebody to throw the ball to.
Yeah, but I think T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are more than capable of carrying a 1-2 workload. I mean, if you go through their stats the past 2 or 3 years, Tyler Boyd's yards and touchdown numbers are through the roof for a guy who's essentially a third receiver. T. Higgins had a pretty good year, but I don't think you can go wrong if you're Cincinnati here. I mean, any of those names on the top 3, is a fine pick with me. I'd be shocked if Pitts was there and they didn't take him. But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with Jamar Chase or Sewell for that matter. That's probably why you see such short odds too, because odds makers, don't really see a clear-cut favorite here. Jamar Chase is the favorite, but they could go Sewell. I don't think they can go wrong with either pick though.
And as we see a couple of the other best bets here on our NFL Draft Hub, Kyle Pitts under 5.5, and again, he's going to fit with one of these teams.
Right.
It's you say a tight end. I mean, he's a big wide receiver.
I would assume if Atlanta doesn't get a tight end, they trade down, and whoever trades up could get Kyle Pitts. But then you have to remember that people are vying for a quarterback too as well.
Now, Jalen Waddle out of Alabama, he got hurt last season, right. And that's someone to look at. But again, that would take away from. If he's the first one to go, it's 7-1. That would take away from Jamar Chase. Right. So you got to kind of throw that one in there. And Jamar Chase, look at that, minus 1,000.
Yeah.
So 1 to 10 odds on Chase being the first receiver.
Yeah, and the value lies with Waddle. And as Bruce Marshall, the guy who gave us our best bets here, pointed out, Ted Ginn went 9th overall when no one saw it coming. Darius Hayward-Bay was the first pick as a wide receiver in the draft. So it's not. I don't think it's crazy to think Waddle actually jumps Chase. For plus 700, those are kind waters to test, I would think.
Rashad Bateman, the receiver out of Minnesota, we'll see, what he does. Kellen Mond, that's kind of interesting. Kellen Mond out of Texas A&M against Davis Mills from Stanford.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the discussion there at the end of the first round, when you get to the 5.5 number of quarterbacks selected in the first round, Lawrence, Wilson are locks. Mac Jones, you got to believe, is a lock somewhere. That's 3. But then you get into the Justin Fields conversation. You get into Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, who's going to be left? Is it going to be Mond at the end of the first round? What do we see last year? Jordan Love went to Green Bay.
Yeah.
Didn't think the Packers would take him with Aaron Rodgers already there. Yeah. So, you kind of wonder with Mond, Mills, Kyle Trask, if those guys will be lingering at the end of the first round and who's going to go.
Yeah, I would assume Tampa Bay would be a team that might take one of these quarterbacks late. Or they could even take Travis Etienne from Clemson, a running back, who I think our mock draft has taking. So I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Tampa Bay took a quarterback with their first pick at the end of the first round. Of the 3, I think Davis Mills would probably go first, but the value does lie with Kellen Mond.
And some of from the mock draft here from Bruce Marshall, who does a great job with all of this, and again, assuming no trades. Trades mess everything up.
Right.
That you see Lawrence, Wilson, Justin Fields. It's so interesting that I don't know how good of an actor Kyle Shanahan is. I really don't. That the talk has been about Mac Jones. He got kind of defensive when asked about it. That if he goes that route, or if Justin Fields somehow goes up to number 3, I don't think anything is crazy once you get past the first 2. Just because all the quarterbacks, you can make the case for Justin Fields for the numbers he put up at Ohio State. Mac Jones had tremendous numbers last season for Alabama. He also had a Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver, but also Jalen Waddle was hurt for a lot of last season. So you got to remember that. But then you look at the Alabama quarterbacks and how they translate to the NFL. You don't have a lot of them that have done that. So that's the other key. Who's going to be that Alabama quarterback? Tua Tagovailoa goes last year to the Dolphins. He's still a work in progress. So you can't say he's a bust right now. It's just a work in progress. But we have not seen that elite Alabama quarterback go to the NFL. So it'll be interesting if Mac Jones is that guy. And looking here, even at Bruce's mock draft, I mean, where's Mac Jones at? That's right here at the
15,
Patriots.
Yeah, 15 in New England.
So he could go as high as 3. He could slip to 15 to New England.
New England could also trade up for him.
Right. And we know that after signing Cam Newton, they signed him to have a quarterback. I kind of felt like that was the way the Dolphins did it last year with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Let's have this guy here, and then when we're ready to bring the rookie up, then we'll bring the rookie up. And I kind of feel that's the same situation in New England, where Cam is here. We need somebody in the roster, but if we can get somebody better, who can throw the ball better, then Cam is going to end up being a backup.
I just don't see why San Francisco would trade up to the 3rd pick for Mac Jones. You would think that, because really the hype around Mac Jones came once San Francisco moved up. There really wasn't a ton of hype around Mac Jones prior to that. And then the move was made, so everyone assumed that that's who they're gunning after. You look at New England 15, you look at Washington 19, you look at Chicago 20. I think those are the most likely teams to trade up for a quarterback. New England has 10 picks in this draft. That is a ton of picks they have in order to try to move up if Belichick wants to. I have no idea what he's thinking. I don't think anyone on this planet knows what that man's ever thinking. So it's difficult to say with New England. Pace, I would like to say, moves the Bears up, but I have no conviction, and I just don't think he's a good enough GM to move up and get the quarterback they want. He's been on record for saying he's fine with Andy Dalton. So if
nobody's fine with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, no one is, but if Pace likes him, whatever. I'm just not the biggest Ryan Pace fan. That's just me. I think Washington is, of the three, they're probably more likely to move up for a quarterback. Rivera is usually consistent. He's more of a conservative when it comes to these sorts of moves, but he's not the only one calling the shots in Washington. They need a quarterback, and you saw how far they got without one last year, pretty much playing with rental quarterbacks the whole season. So if any one of those teams are going to jump up to make a move, I really like Washington to do it. That doesn't mean they will. But I think Washington has the most logic and picks. I believe they have 9 or 10 picks as well in order to move up. So we'll see what happens.
Didn't the Bears trade up to get Mitchell Trubisky?
They did. That was an awful move. But we've seen
but here's my point, though. But my point is, are you now gun shy? Because you say, I don't want to do this again. I don't know if they're going to go up to number 2 necessarily, but I don't want to do it because I don't get criticized. But you can't play that game, though, if you're the Bears.
Because, the thing is, you just have to know what you're doing. I mean, if you trade up for the number 2 pick and get Mahomes or Watson, Watson now, in hindsight, is not good. But at the time, you would think, okay, those are at least logical compared to Mitchell Trubisky. And if you know what you're doing, if you're Ryan Pace in the situation, you can't really think about how I messed up in the past. You have to think about, what's done is done. Now you have to look forward. And if you don't have enough confidence in yourself to be like, well, should I move up? I don't know. I missed on a pick earlier. I don't know what Chicago's doing, but they need to get rid of him. If your GM is thinking that way, you gotta go get the pieces you need. But with that, Kevin, staying at 20 and getting Rashad Bateman, I think is a fine move. But Chicago they're just lying to themselves if they think they don't need a quarterback. They need a quarterback.
No, Dalton and Nick Foles are not the answer. Trubisky's in Buffalo. That's fine. Now he's back and you have Josh Allen. But, yeah, if you have the receiver, that's great. You still need someone to throw him the ball.
Right, and you need protection if you have those guys, too.
So Chicago, they I don't know what they're thinking. Travis Etienne at 32 to Tampa Bay. He's going to rush for 1,200 yards with Brady this year, isn't he going to have a great season? That's a really good pick at the end of the first round. I want to get your thoughts too on this before we let you go. We have a lot of these odds too about the player props and where they're going to go. Oh, this one, the college, Alabama 5.5 as one of them. We saw last year. Alabama, they're going to probably, they could get to, look at that, over 5.5 is minus 200. Yeah. That's crazy if they would get 6 guys drafted. And again, go off the top of your head. We're not even looking at mock drafts now. Mac Jones, Waddle, Devontae Smith, and
Harris.
Najee Harris, if you think he's going to go in the first round, that's 4. Surtain is probably 5.
And then the D tackle is the best on the board. Now, whether he goes in the first round or not, he's not, I don't think. Bruce has him in, he does. Christian Barmore. Yeah. Okay, and there's your 6. Yeah. I think Bama will get 6 in the first round. I would even argue they might get 7.
Right. So Alabama, that's always interesting. I think those are kind of fun props to see the guys from these schools, or at least from the conferences, and which way they can go. But again, there's a million mock drafts here. Okay, which one do you want to look at?
Well, I see the top 5 in exact order, and I'm looking at this, and I gotta help but wonder. Why not take the first or the second choice? Unless Atlanta trades out, that plus 250 or plus 425 should hit. It really depends what Cincinnati wants to do with that pick at number 5. I just think those top 2 first 5 picks in exact order odds are worth trying out. Now, if you think for some reason San Francisco is not getting Mac Jones, you can find value in what we talked about to start, which was Trey or Justin Fields being taken for plus value at the 3rd pick. So you could essentially hedge 3 picks all at plus value, and you will more than likely hit on one of those.
Yeah, the Justin Fields one in the middle, it's just interesting because, look, again, is Kyle Shanahan, is he holding back as far as he thinks maybe Justin Fields is his guy and not Mac Jones? I mean, who knows? And that's just what makes this interesting. I mean, how much would that suck if you had Lawrence Wilson and Fields and then Pitts and then somehow Chase slips and oh man, we got to 4, and then we got to pay attention with that one. But yeah, I mean, look, there's so many things going on with the draft, and obviously last year with the pandemic, this was the only thing going on. There was no baseball, there's no basketball. So this is any event the NFL puts on, it's a big event. So looking forward to this, and this should be a lot of fun. So you can check out our NFL Draft Hub at VegasInsider.com under the NFL Draft right up here. Check it out. Yep. And you can find also a video that I did with Josh Applebaum from VSiN, and as well as the podcast, and going over some of these props as well. So, Tom, with your parting thoughts before we let you go.
Get ready for the Derby. We got Kentucky Derby Saturday, so we're going to be doing a lot of that. Be sure to check out all our content. Our horse racing experts, Anthony Stabile, has done an unbelievable job previewing this event. He has a complete breakdown for all 20 horse contenders on Saturday, and his predictions, his picks, his exacta, trifecta. There's so much around it. Such a big, fun event. Definitely want to check that out. That's going to be what I'll be looking forward to this weekend.
Yep. So Anthony Stabile, always a great job with him
great,
doing that. So we'll look forward to that, and he'll have a video up to preview that, and we will have that on VegasInsider.com as well. So Tom, thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess we will speak tomorrow. So that's what we have there. And NFL Draft, amazing how much pub this gets. So now let's look at some Major League Baseball, considering we have games coming up in just a little bit. Let's quickly run through last night in case you missed it. And the Marlins beat the Brewers. That was a daytime game yesterday in Milwaukee, and Miami wins at 6-2. So the Marlins end up taking 2 of 3 from the Brewers in that series. So that's a good job by Miami after they lost their series to San Francisco before. How about this one? If you had the under, well, there was 2 really bad total beats last night, and we'll go over both of them. First, the Reds and the Dodgers. Actually involved both LA teams. Reds and Dodgers, and Clayton Kershaw tosses a gem. It was 2-0 LA going to the 8th inning on a 7.5 total. So basically, what you needed was A, no extra innings, but B, the Dodgers to maybe score a few runs, put it away, and be done. LA scores 6 in the bottom of the 8th, and they go over 7.5. That is a killer. What a terrible beat that is. But they lock up the, sorry about that, they lock up the run line win with that 8-0 victory over the Reds yesterday. Okay, let's go to the night games. Atlanta, they destroyed the Cubs again, 10-0. So Kyle Hendricks should be happy he's not seeing the Cubs again or the Braves again this season. He has been racked in 2 starts. I think he allowed 10 runs in the 2 starts in the first inning to the Braves. Anthony Rizzo was pitching in the 9th inning of this game, or the 8th inning of this game, against the Braves, and he struck out Freddie Freeman. That's the one thing baseball does well, is that they can almost lighten the game when it's a blowout. They bring in position players to pitch, and it almost lightens the game up. So the Cubs trying to avoid the sweep against the Braves tonight in Atlanta. We'll look at that in just a moment. Philadelphia wins at St. Louis 5-3. Bryce Harper got drilled in the face with a pitch. He won't play today in the series finale against the Cardinals. San Diego had a myriad of pitchers go last night. It was like an old merry-go-round. And they ended up beating Arizona 12-3, so they bounced back from the loss in the opener of that series at Chase Field. They score 6 in the 5th and win at 12-3. The Rockies still have 1 road win on the season. They dropped 2 of 3 to the Giants. All 3 of those games went over the total in San Francisco. And look, Colorado's offense just doesn't travel. It's as simple as that. That they fare very well at Coors Field, but on the road, not so much. They dropped 5 of 6 to San Francisco so far this month on the road. Minnesota avoids a sweep by winning at Cleveland 10-2. They desperately needed that one. The Twins have been a disaster so far this season. But look at that. 4 in the first, 2 in the second, 1 in the third, 7-1 after 3, and pretty much on cruise control after that. So Minnesota got a big win. We'll see if it turns them around. The way they started is kind of amazing in a negative way. Yankees shut out the Orioles 7-0, so New York now, they're coming around. They lost that first game of the Orioles. They've won the last 2. They get another one today. Tampa Bay shuts out Oakland 2-0. Tyler Glass now, another victory for him. He shuts down this Oakland lineup, so the A's have slowed down a little bit after that 13-game winning streak. Here's the second bad total beat of the night. So the Angels, they led the Rangers 4-0 after their first at-bat, 4-3 after 2, and then look at the rest of the way. Zeros. So 8.5 total, 4-3 after 2, final score 4-3. That's a burn right there. Alex Cobb pitched well in that one. He bounced back after he struggled against the Astros his last time out. Now this one really stinks against Seattle. So the Mariners, who took care of the Astros last weekend in Seattle, have not fared well in this series against the Astros. Houston goes up 2-0. Seattle gets 5 unanswered runs. The Mariners up 5-3 going to the 8th. So you're in control. Now let's just say, A, you had Seattle plus 190, or B, you had Seattle on the run line. Houston gets 4 in the bottom of the 8th. What a kick in the balls that is. 4 in the bottom of the 8th, and Houston wins it 7-5. So Houston gets the, well, let's see, it was 5-3. So they get the over by going in the 8th inning or getting the 4 runs. I mean, they needed 1 run, but they got 4. And Zach Greinke, who shut down the Mariners the first time they played, this time not as good of an outing, but he's still, the Astros win with him on the mound. He doesn't get the win. But the Astros, though, they have picked it up a bit since they've got some of their players back. So they got Alex Bregman back, they got Alvarez back, they got some other now hitters in their lineup. You can't win with what the lineup they had. So that's a tough one for Seattle. They play again today this afternoon at Minute Maid Park. Kansas City holds off Pittsburgh in interleague play 9-6. That game took forever last night if you were watching it. And also, the Royals had bases loaded twice, and the Pirates had bases loaded once in the first 4 innings and couldn't score. So 9-6 is even a low-scoring game for those two. Both teams were on a huge underrun before last night, and the Royals really busted out. They won that game 9-6. The Red Sox beat the Mets 1-0. And again, this is a story of a man named DeGrom. I don't know what Jacob DeGrom can do. Jacob DeGrom allowed 4 hits, allowed 1 run. And yet his offense still can do nothing for him. The Mets had first and second in the first inning, couldn't score. Nick Pivetta, who has actually been a really nice find for the Red Sox, they got him last year from the Phillies. He has been tremendous for them. That the Red Sox, who don't have Chris Sale right now in the rotation because he's hurt, David Price went to the Dodgers, Eduardo Rodriguez has actually been the ace, but they don't have that second guy really. And Nick Pivetta is turning into maybe that second guy in that rotation. So Boston scores 3 runs in 2 games at New York and wins them both. 2-1 and 1-0 the last 2 nights. That's a great job by the Red Sox. They've been fantastic on the road this season. At home they've been shaky, but with DeGrom, I don't know what else this guy can do. I really don't. He has to probably pitch a bad game, and maybe that'll get the offense going. Washington wins against Toronto in Dunedin 8-2. So after the Nationals lost that first game, both games now have gone over the total. Scherzer got lit up the first night. Eric Bidet went last night. And huge underdog. It's a really good price to get the Nationals at. And Steven Matz, who the former Met, who's seen the Nationals before, a little bit of familiarity there. But good job there by Washington to bounce back as a nice dog. And Tigers, White Sox got wiped out. They have a doubleheader today. Let's look at today's action. Not a lot of games here on this Thursday, but you have Aaron Nola going for the Phillies against Kwang Hyun Kim, who is a decent pitcher for the Cardinals. And he is coming off a win his last time out against the Reds. Nola tossed a complete game shutout against St. Louis at Citizens Bank Park earlier this season. So now he's laying 120. Again, no Bryce Harper in the lineup for the Phillies. And I got to mention this, though. The Phillies, they are 0-8 their last 8 off a win. They have not won back-to-back games and starting 4-0, and they're 12-12. So they win 1, they lose 1. I can't say they lose 1 then win 1, but when they win, they lose the next game. That's been a nice trend to ride. Cubs and Braves tonight at Truist Park, and the Braves going for the sweep there. So Atlanta, man, that team has been so up and down this season. They were swept by the Phillies to start. They had a bad series against the Marlins. But they bounce back here now, and they're going for the sweep. Where Chicago just 2-7 on the road this season, and Bryce Wilson favored in this game tonight. Not exactly the best pitcher that Atlanta's thrown out so far in this series, but we'll see what he does here. Laying 130. Bauer and Lauer tonight from Milwaukee. As the Reds, or I say the Reds, Trevor Bauer was with the Reds last year, now with the Dodgers. Cy Young winner with the Reds last year. Trevor Bauer laying 200 for the Dodgers against Eric Lauer at plus 180. And Milwaukee, who's actually been better on the road than at home. And LA, they avoided the sweep against Bauer's old team, the Reds, yesterday with that 8-0 win. So LA 8-4 on the road. I don't know how you lay 200 with the Dodgers here, even though Milwaukee doesn't have a lot of offense still. I can't do that. Rockies and the Diamondbacks tonight from Arizona. Second series for them. And you see Colorado 1-8 on the road. Antonio Senzatella, he actually had his best outing against Arizona earlier this season at Coors Field. Did allow a run in 7 or 8 innings of work. Luke Weaver lost to the Rockies in that same series at Coors Field, but his best start came against Cincinnati at home. So you have guys with good numbers there. Weaver, good at home. Senzatella, good against the Diamondbacks. And Arizona laying 150 here after they were a huge dog the last 2 against San Diego. In the American League, Yankees Orioles from Camden Yards. You see Jordan Montgomery laying 180. That's a heavy price to pay. Jorge Lopez goes for the Orioles. But the Yankees, all of a sudden, they've woken up a bit. 7-6 on the road, 11-13. They were 5-10. So 6-3 the last 9. The Yankees waking up a little bit. Orioles, it's hard to ignore that 3-10 on the at home. On the road, they've been good. 7-4 on the road, but 3-10 at Camden Yards is unacceptable. A's and the Rays from Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay with a win today, they will even their home mark at 7-7. Chris Bassett goes as a short dog against Shane McClanahan. The only McClanahan I know is Rue McClanahan from Golden Girls. That's it. But Shane McClanahan goes, and Oakland, after they were playing well for a bit, they lost that game to Baltimore. They've had some struggles here in Tampa or in St. Pete, so we'll see what happens here with the Rays as a short favorite. Seattle and Houston, they wrap up their series, and the Astros, we're going to finish off the Mariners today. Luis Garcia goes against Kikuchi, who has been up and down a bit with the against the Astros since he's come into the bigs. But both these teams now still winning records. I mean, Seattle's been a good story at 13-12. The Astros, we know they've had some issues. They started off hot, then could do nothing, and now they play better here on their homestand. Boston and Texas, that's intriguing. Kyle Gibson's been really good. He recorded 1 out against the Royals in his first start and was knocked around in the first inning. He's pitched really well since that game. Martin Perez facing his old team tonight, and we'll see if the Red Sox, 8-1 on the road, what they can do now, not facing Jacob deGrom, not facing the Mets, where they scored 3 runs the last 2 games, and now the offense busts out in Texas. And then you have Tigers-White Sox doubleheader. Casey Mize, the former number 1 pick out of Auburn, goes against Carlos Rodon, who had the no-hitter a few starts ago. Then Matthew Boyd and Dylan Cease in the night game, both 7-inning games. Don't forget that. That's why we have the 6 totals. So Detroit won the first game with Chicago, and now they got 2 today, where I still think Detroit has the pitching advantage of the second game with Boyd over Cease. I mean, Cease is at number 5. Boyd's the number 1 on Detroit, even though the Tigers aren't a good team. I still think Boyd is a better look there. As far as Carlos Rodon, I want to see what he does now, not facing the Indians. He had a couple good starts against them. And Casey Mize, who, look, he's going to be good. It just depends on which day you get him on because he's still a young pitcher. Now, NBA, let's look at last night. Tonight's not a lot of action, but let's roll through it. Philadelphia routs Atlanta 127-83, laying 9.5, up 20 after 1, up 28 at the half. The Hawks just don't have a lot of pieces right now. It's as simple as that. Trae Young's hurt. There's a lot of guys hurt on that team. The Lakers were a 3-point favorite. They closed as 1-point favorites. They lose at Washington 116-107. So the Wizards pull off a season sweep of the Lakers. That's a good job by them. And Washington bounces back from the San Antonio loss in overtime a few nights ago. Washington's right in the mix for the playoffs. That's a really good job by Scott Brooks, considering the Wizards were like left for dead. But again, Bradley Beal's put up a great season. Russell Westbrook numbers are erratic at times, but he's still been a good addition. Russell Westbrook is in a better spot in Washington than John Wall is in Houston, and John Wall's done for the season. So Westbrook is someone to play for in Washington now. Orlando wins at Cleveland 109-104, and you just can't lay points with Cleveland at this point of the season. Colin Sexton didn't play for them. Look at that third and fourth quarter. Actually, the first and the third, Cleveland scores a total of 33 points. They had 43 in the fourth. In the NBA, it's mind-boggling how those things happen. But Orlando, they're just a better bet on the road right now. I wouldn't take them getting 3.5 all the time. I'd rather them be huger or bigger underdogs. But A, you can't lay points with Cleveland right now, and B, Orlando's just been dreadful at home, but on the road, they've actually been a little more competitive. Charlotte loses at Boston 121-11, and this one got a little interesting. Huge first quarter for the Celtics, but Kemba Walker didn't play. The Hornets, again, there's only so much they can do with what they have out there. Where LaMelo Ball and Gordon Hayward, they're hurt. There's only so much you can do when you have all these guys injured, and that's the problem with a lot of these teams. New York pulls away from Chicago 113-94. I've noticed that the Knicks, as a favorite, it's a good underlook, and also they've been really good defensively. They've held a bunch of teams under 100 points when they're playing as a favorite. And I know the Knicks have been a dog a lot recently against Phoenix, where they lost a few nights ago against Toronto. When that line swung last Saturday against Memphis, against New Orleans, but now they're favored. And the Bulls without Zach LaVine, they actually came back and made this interesting in the fourth quarter, but then the Knicks pulled away. You see 37-19 in the fourth. This was a close game in the fourth quarter before New York opened it up, and it barely stayed under the total. The Heat and Spurs played a bit of a wild game last night. Close game at the half. Heat win it by 5, so they get the season sweep of San Antonio. That's a tough loss for the Spurs, considering they're right there for the Southwest Division. They still have a couple games behind Dallas, but they, again, can't afford to lose these games. But the Heat end up pulling out that win. Denver holds off New Orleans 114-112. Game stays under the total of 230. And Denver has beaten New Orleans now a few times this season. Good job by Portland going into Memphis after they lost to the Grizzlies twice at home. Kind of an interesting scheduling quirk, if you will, that the Blazers played the Grizzlies twice at home and then on the road 3 times in a week, or 3 times in like 5 days, actually. Portland lost the first 2 to Memphis at Moda Center, and they had a huge first half. Look at that. Up 28 at halftime against the Grizzlies. That line dropped, and the Blazers, a couple of big performances offensively on the road at Indiana and at Memphis, and Portland, who had a dreadful homestand, they really needed those wins, so now they're getting a little bit of confidence back. Utah drops 154 on Sacramento. De'Aaron Fox is out for the Kings, but still, they're laying 9. They were up by 54 at one point in this game. Look at those quarters. Their first quarter was the worst quarter, 30 points. They had 46, 40, 38. So they combined for 259 in that one. That's not even in question. That over. And then Phoenix beats the Clippers 109-101. A game that the Suns pretty much led the whole way. First win for the Suns over the Clippers this season. And that one stays under the total of 220.5 out in Phoenix. So the Suns help themselves by now extending their lead in the Pacific Division. Dallas is at Detroit to start off tonight's action, and the Pistons go in full tank mode. Jeremy Grant's not going to play. Mason Plumlee's not going to play. Dallas beat Detroit about 9 days ago at American Airlines Center by 10. Detroit's coming off a win over Atlanta. The Pistons have lost their last 7 games off of a win. Every loss is by double digits. So look at Dallas maybe tonight. Brooklyn's at Indiana. This is interesting because, well, the Pacers have been so terrible at home covering numbers, and also they've been a bad home underdog this year, but this has been kind of a weird one. Brooklyn's beaten Indiana twice this year. That's not weird. But in both those games, Indiana closed as a favorite. At Barclays Center, somehow Indiana was a favorite, and Brooklyn ran them. And then in Indiana, James Harden played, Durant didn't play. Brooklyn was a dog, and they won. So now they're laying 8 in this third matchup. And I don't know if you want to take a shot with the Pacers. I'm gun-shying the Pacers because of their bad record, A, at home, and B, as a home dog. And you saw Portland ran them the other night, so that one's a little scary. But look at that total, up to 244 tonight between the Pacers and the Nets. Golden State's at Minnesota. Warriors laying 4 there against the Timberwolves. And Minnesota's actually played somewhat better of late, beating Houston and beating Utah a few times. So Minnesota playing with a little bit of confidence. Golden State laying 4 there at Target Center. Milwaukee, a 12.5-point favorite at Houston. It feels like that's not even enough. John Wall is out. The Rockets, for a little bit, they were playing better, but, I mean, Milwaukee obviously totally outclasses them. Toronto's at Denver. Remember last time these teams played, the Raptors ran them in Tampa, so I'm sure Denver has that in the back of their mind, but the Nuggets with no rest tonight. New Orleans at Oklahoma City. Pelicans a huge favorite, laying 9.5. Oklahoma City ended their long skid by beating Boston a few nights ago, but now they're a 9.5-point dog at home against the Pelicans team that could easily run them. So that's the look at the NBA for tonight, and we talked about the NFL draft as well as Major League Baseball. Don't forget about our buy picks page for NBA, for Major League Baseball, for the NHL, and you can find our handicappers here with their selections, $29.95 per handicapper per sport. So you get whatever picks they have for the day. And then we have the guaranteed picks for $39.95. That's just one selection from a handicapper, but guaranteed to win is their best play. Pay after it wins. If it loses, you pay nothing. If it wins, you pay $39.95, but also you pay for a winner. So that is for NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL. You can find all of that on the buy picks pages of all of these sports. And don't forget about past the NFL draft tonight. Also, we have plenty of previews here. Nets, Pacers getting showcased tonight. Also in hockey, with them coming down the stretch, and some playoff berths have been clinched. Some of these important games, Penguins, Capitals, also Panthers and Blackhawks in Chicago. Also, if you want to check out the NFL draft prop best bets video with Josh Applebaum from VSiN, I talked to him earlier this week, and that video is up. You can find that, and also the Bet and Collect podcast. It's a longer version of that conversation in podcast form. Thursday's best bets with Kevin Davis, Kentucky Derby predictions with Anthony Stabile, and even the NASCAR coming up this weekend in Kansas. Bushy McBush 400. Micah Roberts has the breakdown of that. F1, all of that is there. So it's a very busy time right now. In spite of no football, even though you have football night in a sense with the NFL draft, but with no football games going on, still a lot to look at. And want to remind you once again about our Daily Insider contest. Go to the register button if you are not if you do not have a VIID. If you do, then you don't have to worry about it because you've already registered. But if you don't, register for user ID, big yellow button on the homepage. Register now, and you can create an ID, a password, all for free. As you see, there's the information, no credit card, none of that. It's all for free. And you need the ID so we can find you and give you the prize, assuming you win. Now remember, you're in a drawing to win the prize daily, which is 7 free days of one handicapper of your selection at VegasInsider.com. So what you need to do is put your user ID, make sure you're a subscriber as well. Place your bets below in the comments section. You see the big red sign right here on our video, win a weekly package, right there, in your face so you know. Place your best bets and your user ID in the comments section. Your best bet for tonight. You cannot do Trevor Lawrence minus 10,000 at Jacksonville. You're not going to win if you do that. But NBA, baseball, NHL, give us a selection, a best bet. You can do the NFL draft props within reason, nothing ridiculous, nothing minus 5,000, something within reason, and you'll be in the drawing to win. So check that out. Put that in the comments section below. We've gotten a lot of participation, and we continue to get the participation. We're happy that you are participating, so let's keep it going, and that's what we have. Best bet, user ID. Make sure you are a subscriber to our YouTube channel, Vegas Insider. We appreciate it very much, you being a part of our community here. And we will be back tomorrow. We'll talk about the NFL draft and how everything unfolded, if Mac Jones goes to San Francisco or not, and all the baseball and NBA coming up for the Friday card. So with all that being said, I am Kevin Rogers. We appreciate you watching the daily insider show here on our YouTube channel at VegasInsider.com. And as always, best of luck with your bets.